I wish I could tell you that was the worst one. But that's just one that like continues to escalate. You're like, holy cow. So I was at a mastermind a few weeks ago, and we're sitting around, hanging out, and somehow somebody started sharing a story about a tenant who was like the worst. And we got onto these kind of like shitbag tenant stories. And the reality is majority of tenants are fantastic. Majority of tenants are amazing. Our job as landlords is to deliver someplace that's clean, safe, functional, cosmetically updated, right? Someplace where people can have a proud home to live in. But I remember early on in my days, I was, didn't have a lot of money and trying to figure things out, trying to like skate by doing the least amount of renovations instead of the most in renovations. And so, anybody who'd raise their hand to come and live in this property, I would let them come and live in there. I didn't screen any of my tenants. I didn't do a very good job a lot of that stuff. And so I have a lot of stories from early on in my career of just the most mayhem you could possibly think of. So we thought it'd be a fun series to kind of share some of those tenant stories. And I'm going to share one with you right now.
So what do we do about shitbag tenants? Kick them out and raise rents.
So this is one of the best I got. I've had a lot of tenants. I've had a lot of stories. I've had buildings burned down. Oh man, I should tell you that one too. Multiple people who have died, overdosed, murders. Like there's a lot of crazy, crazy stuff that we've dealt with. Parties, like just insane, insane things. This one is kind of ridiculous. So this is one of my first multifamily properties. In 2012, I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio from Charleston for a few years, and started buying apartment buildings and multifamily properties up there. So went into like a C- at best neighborhood, and bought a triplex in a rough neighborhood, again, early 2013-ish, for $14,000. Bought the whole triplex for 14 grand. And I put like 5 grand into renovating it, which is not a lot of money, right? I cleaned it all up, just essentially did flooring, paint, fixtures, and then put a for lease sign on the front of the building. So there were 2 units downstairs, 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom, and then there was a 3 bedroom up top. So the 1 bedroom gets leased up, and it was like $450 a month in rent, right? The 2 bedroom is like $550 a month in rent, and the upstairs I think was $650 a month in rent. So the front gets leased up. Some quiet guy, hard worker, doesn't talk to anybody, goes to work, comes home, doesn't bother anyone. Amazing, amazing tenant. The dude in the back calls me up, and we're gonna call him BJ. And BJ calls me and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a place, and looking for like a 2 bedroom. I got some pets and blah blah blah." And so I'm like, "All right, $550 a month." He goes, "No problem." And this is when they were paying in cash, right? And it always smelled like weed in BJ's apartment. Okay, before marijuana was legalized, it always smelled like marijuana. And he had some like obscure pets. He had like a bunny rabbit, and then he had like a little like toy poodle dog or something like that. And he had just weird for some dude who was like 6'7", who I'm pretty sure sold drugs, right, for a living. Again, this is early 2013. Place the front tenant, place the back tenant, and then the upstairs tenant gets placed as well. And they're moving in the middle of winter in Cleveland, Ohio. So it's like February, March, late February, whatever it was. And they're moving in, and BJ is out there talking to the upstairs tenant. And the upstairs tenant, I wouldn't say they were white trash, because my attorney told me not to call them that, but I would say they're very classless, all right? The grandma was about 45, and then the daughter was probably 25, and then she had a couple kids who were like 10, okay? So it's that kind of a setup that was happening. And the kids were an absolute disaster, but they had $650 a month. So I was like, yeah, come on in, come on. So they're moving into this house, and there's like a back stairwell, and then there's center stairwell. The back stairwell goes straight to their apartment, and there's a door to the back 2-bedroom apartment. So they're moving in, and BJ goes outside, smoking a joint or a cigarette or whatever it was, and starts talking to the upstairs tenant who's moving in. And the mother, the grandmother, who's like 45 years old, starts telling BJ how big of a slut her daughter is. And BJ goes, oh yeah, oh yeah? And you can see him scheming, okay? So a couple of days go by. It wasn't more than a week. And all of a sudden, he hears the back door open and clunking coming up the stairs. He opens up his door from his apartment, looks up, sees that it's the daughter, and says, hey, why don't you come and hang out with me? So they hang out, and eventually it leads to jello noises, right? From there, she leaves, and a couple of weeks go by. BJ, he's like, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? Like, she wants a relationship. He wants nothing to do with her. And all of a sudden, it gets very contesting, okay? So there's this back and forth between the tenants that happens where they would mess with him and then he'd mess with them, kind of a thing. So it's the middle of winter time. She would come in the back door and just leave the exterior door open, so all this cold air would blow in underneath his door into his apartment, which was like his bedroom, is the way that he configured it. He gets super pissed, tapes up a bunch of like cellophane and stuff on his door, so that way the cold air can't blow in. In response, something happened. I don't know. They had something delivered or whatever. He takes it, throws it away, whatever that happens. Okay. Yeah. Then this girl's getting her kids ready, who are like 7, 8, 10 years old, whatever it was. And these two little boys, and they're super loud and super raucous, and they start blaring country music, all right, in the middle of, not in the middle of the morning, but it was like, 7:30 in the morning. Meanwhile, BJ doesn't wake up that early, so BJ's a little bit pissed about what's going on, so much so that later on that night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, starts blaring rap music, right, as loud as he possibly can. So now it's like, I'm playing babysitter, I'm getting phone calls left and right. They get so pissed upstairs. They had like a Rottweiler, some sort of crazy ass like dog that has a bad rep for a bad temperament, right? Remember, BJ's back door is sealed now because of the cold weather, so he can only go out the center stairwell. They leave their dog in the center stairwell when they leave for the entire day. So BJ can't get out of his apartment because his dog is barking at his door, and he can't leave. So he's got to crawl through a window in order to get out and come back. He's so pissed, he goes and slashes their tires. Okay? So you can see how it starts spiraling. It comes to a point, a peak, an apex. All right? The climax of the story. You ready for this? He takes his little friggin' poodle out for a walk, and he's walking down the street in a rough neighborhood with his poodle. They said, hey, we're gonna let our dog out and go after his poodle. So they let the dog out off leash, starts running down the block at him and his poodle. He ends up taking his steel toe boot, kicks their dog, then pulls out a freaking gun and shoots it twice. Dead in the middle of the road. He goes into his apartment, gets his toy poodle in one hand, gets his bunny rabbit in the other, buys a bus ticket to Dayton, Ohio, calls me on the bus ride and tells me, those bitches ruined my life. I was like, are you out of your friggin' mind, dude? I'm like, what, in what world do you think it's okay to shoot somebody's dog in the middle of the road, no matter how mad you are? So, fast forward, I get multiple calls from police officers. They're asking where BJ went. I don't know where he went. Here's his phone number. And eventually BJ sneaks back in, grabs all of his stuff a couple of weeks later, and rolls out. I've never seen BJ since then. The upstairs tenants, consistent pain in my ass for as long as I own that property. Downstairs, other front guy, rock star for as long as I own that property. But I couldn't sell that one fast enough. But there's a shitbag tenant story for you that hopefully you got some good entertainment out of.